Welcome to the Culture Edit. Unique perspectives into the personal and professional lives of individuals at the helm of successful business, athletics, art, and design. Welcome to the Culture Edit, episode 87. We are recording Tuesday afternoon, just finished editing our upcoming podcast that you're about to listen to, and we're just going to do a quick intro because the guest today is very interesting.
Hey everyone, Chad here.
For those of you that are new to the podcast, this podcast is really about a lot of different things, but the one through line is that we tend to have guests who are associated in endurance sport in some way. But a lot of it has to do with all things culture, a culture of art, the culture of music, the culture of sports, the culture of athletics. And today happens to be an athletic one.
Yeah. We got a really big week this week, don't we?
Yeah. This Friday, today we actually started the day nice and early with a lot of content generation with Michael Garrison and Patrick and Shannon.
For Speed Studio.
Yep. And it's going to be great because the content is leading us into Speed Week for some exciting things. We have a Friday aperitivo party to kick off the celebration of Speed Week.
Putting our money where our mouth is, literally and figuratively, because you said Americans need to party more. So
we're partying.
We're having our second party since you made that proclamation.
Aperitivo this Friday, 5 to 7:30 p.m. Be there. If you want to look for the invite, it's on our Instagrams and in all the newsletters we've sent out and all the emails we've sent out. And we've probably texted you multiple times as well.
Speed Studio Global.
Make sure you RSVP, please.
Yeah.
And before we get into anything else, I want to make sure that everyone listening likes, subscribes, and shares this podcast. It helps us out. I try to reiterate it multiple times, and I've been trying to say it at the beginning of the podcast rather than the end. So like, subscribe, and share.
So if you don't know what we're talking about when we mention Speed Week or Athens Twilight or any of this, it's one of the biggest American race events for road bikes. And it happens in the Southeast, and the biggest race is Athens Twilight. But you can go to usacrits.com, and you actually can watch all of them.
You can live stream them.
Live streamed, if you really want to be a bike race nerd.
I mean, they're pretty exciting to watch.
Well, especially if you know someone in the race,
yeah,
which
if you know someone in the race, it's pretty fun. So we have that going on.
One other thing you haven't mentioned, next week we're going to Troca.
That's what I was about to say.
Oh, okay.
So the other exciting things we have going on is next Wednesday we are leaving and skedaddling over to Girona, Spain. We're going to do a bike race, a gravel bike race called Traca. We're not really sure how to say it. And then after that, we're going up to Grasse, France, the perfume capital of the world. Going to do a little perfume making. So I'm very excited to tell you all about that. Then we are going over to, Aix-en-Provence. There's another little town that someone told us to go visit. And then from there, we're going to drive up the French Riviera to Nice and spend some time in Nice. If you have any tips or places to recommend, please let us know because we'd love some recommendations.
Yeah, for sure. We've got plans through the first part of that trip, but the second half is wide open.
Yeah, which honestly might be nice because we could just lay on a beach, which I know you never actually want to relax, but the funny thing I was thinking about this morning, I haven't been thinking of this as a vacation because when bikes are involved, it just seems like really stressful. So I just don't think of it as a vacation at all.
Right.
It seems more like a work trip.
There's some work involved.
Yeah.
But just on the front end.
But I was thinking about
work in the front, party in the back.
I was thinking about how usually I'd be like planning my outfits and like trying to like get excited about a trip, but I'm like, I haven't planned any outfits. I haven't even thought about it. Because it feels like a work trip. So we gotta switch the mindset and try and include some relaxing time as well.
It's coming up. We'll have one more episode before we leave.
Yes. Are we gonna record while we're on the road?
I mean, we normally do. I guess we need to talk through that.
Yeah. I think it depends on where we are and what we're doing because the days that we would be editing and everything, I think we're gonna be pretty busy. So we might just have to push it a day or so.
We're definitely gonna record some possible guests while we're over there.
Oh.
There's two. So while we're in Girona, we'll be checking in with some gravel pros. And then in Nice, we might have someone that we want to talk to. An art expert. Yeah. And so everyone, thanks for everyone reaching out to me about my back. We'll give an update on that next week. definitely had a lot of progress.
Yes,
So
a lot of progress, and he's found an expert at Emory who
you're gonna just,
is very. No, I'm just saying, it's very lucky that you found him. So
yeah,
it's good.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're on the
hopefully
mend.
I'll be able to ride.
You're on the mend. But I think outside of that, we have, again, a really busy summer, really exciting summer, big things coming up for the fall, staying busy with work, of course. So we have a guest today, really exciting, Dan Cohen. He's coming to us via Zoom from Minnesota. It's much colder there than it is here. And he is the Chief Performance Officer at Human Powered Health. Now, a lot of you cyclists might recognize the name Human Powered Health from the cycling team because they do have a women's team. They used to have a men's team, but they're actually a lot more than that. They're a much bigger business focused on holistic performance for athletes. And so we dig into some really interesting things with him. But before that, he came from United Healthcare Group, where he actually ran and worked in their health incubator. So it's like an incubator within an investment group within United Healthcare that was trying to come up with innovative ways to help people through healthcare. So he has an interesting background, very, very smart guy, and it's a really interesting listen.
So I think a lot of people will think, I know Human Powered Health, I know the logo, I know the kit, I know the orange, but I don't really know what they do. This is the opportunity to actually learn about what they do. And they have physical locations, and we'll talk through that, but maybe we'll even go visit one later this summer.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the Culture Edit.
How are you?
Good.
How you guys been?
Good. How's the weather out there? You coming out of the throes of winter yet or not?
Yeah, I mean, it snowed pretty heavily the other day, just out of the blue, and it's melted though pretty quickly. So I think we're on the tail end. This is like a weird time in Minnesota where it could be 70 degrees one day, 25 the next. It's just crazy. But it's the way it is.
So are you outside? Are you running and doing stuff outside yet or what?
I'm outside. I run outside. So we live in an 1890 Victorian house in St. Paul.
Nice.
And they didn't really build those houses to be able to fit a treadmill upstairs, as an example. So I have no choice but to go outside and run around. So
you might go through the floor if you put a treadmill in there.
Probably. Yeah, we've got way too much weight in the house to begin with. We're always kind of like, oh man, any moment.
My question for you: when you run outside in the snow and the ice,
yeah,
what do you wear on the bottom of your shoes?
Nothing. I
Really?
never went with those yak tracks or whatever they're called. Always just always just the standard setup, standard shoes, and just really careful.
Oh.
The reason I ask you is because I was joking when we were supposed to have like a big snow in Atlanta.
We did have a big snow.
Well, it ended up being, so I ordered yak tracks because I was like, I've never run in the snow before, and we have this like thing called the belt line that turns into just a sheet of ice as soon as it snows because it melts so fast, and then it's just ice.
Yeah.
And so they were all making fun of me because I was like, well, but I probably won't actually run in them, but if we want to walk around, black ice is like the worst part of it snowing in Atlanta because it just doesn't stay cold enough to like keep the snow.
Yeah.
So I ordered a pair, and then all day it ended up snowing 6 inches where we live, which is like insane for Atlanta.
That's like apocalyptic.
Exactly.
So,
we were hunkered down.
Well, it was good because it happened on a Friday morning, so no one had gone to work yet. So instead, it turned into this like amazing day of kids were out sledding, and it was very cool. But having made fun of me for ordering my Amazon yak tracks, I was the only one who didn't slip and fall all day.
Yeah.
Around the city.
You're like, jokes on you. Yeah, exactly.
But it's so, I saw people running. I mean, I know you can obviously run without them, but I think I'm far too clumsy.
She's a big fan. Are you a morning workout guy? Or are you an afternoon guy? What's your preferred?
I'm a morning guy now.
Yeah.
When I was back racing hardcore, obviously it was morning, noon, night,
all day.
Yeah, but now it's limited window in the morning. I get it in. It's very rare when I don't get something in during the day, during the morning. Very rare when I don't do something on a day. That's just been like that for the last 20 years.
It's like an early morning board call, and then you can't do your workout, and you're just pissed.
Yeah, but I get pretty creative. I've been at hotels before where I can't get on the treadmill or I've got something early and I'll run up and down the flight of stairs 100 times. It's about prioritizing.
Yeah.
So
I like that dedication. What
yeah,
nowadays? What's your sport of choice? Because you used to be a professional triathlete, so.
yeah, running,
Yeah.
and I row my Concept 2. I love that. And then of
Oh,
course I've got every Wahoo product known to man at my house. So I I have my tri bike set up on my kicker, and then I've got another kicker bike. Um, but yeah, I mean, I the last triathlon I did was 2014,
okay.
and this was Vineman half 70.3. Um, and then shortly after, well, 4 years after that, it was actually during Vineman where I started to feel this pain in my hips, my right hip to be exact.
Yeah.
And I was like, something doesn't feel right. Long story short, it progressively got worse over the next 4 years. And in 2018, I had a bilateral hip replacement. So both my hips at the same time.
Wow.
Wow.
And which they typically don't do. But my orthopod was like, you're an athlete, you're relatively young, you should have good recovery. And he was right.
Yeah.
Um, so then I obviously I wanted to get back into running. And after the surgery, that was my first question. When can I start training? He's like, running again. I just want you to learn how to walk.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. So I built myself back up and got permission from my wife to train for an Ironman a couple of years ago. And I was training for Ironman Wisconsin, and I had to get all new equipment and I crashed on my new tri bike
Uh,
and then fractured my pelvis.
damn.
Wow.
So that's a long-winded way of saying that I think my days of doing triathlons and riding outside might be coming to an end.
Yeah.
So it's just I've had a lot of I've fractured my neck my C6 in a cycling crash. So I'm
Are these
taking it
solo
easy.
crashes or are you crashing with other people? What's happening?
No, solo. This one
Uh,
was solo. The roads in St. Paul are also pretty gnarly in terms of potholes and stuff like that. So if you're not paying attention,
yeah. Way to keep that triathlon reputation up on the crashing side.
oh yeah, exactly, yeah. But so I've running has really been my passion for the last 25 years, and so I'm thankful to still be able to do that and
Yeah.
bang it out a little bit. 25, 30 miles is all I need. So
Yeah.
I've had some bad crashes too. All joking aside, and I had a femoral neck fracture, so I broke the ball off.
ooh, yeah,
So similar situation to you, where the doctor's like, let's just make sure you can walk, and let's hope you can walk without a cane for the rest of your life. And then what I found, and I don't know how you feel about this, but once you got better, it made everything you do so appreciative. Like every day is a gift. Every ride, every run, everything you get to do. Whereas before, and not that people can't understand if you haven't faced that, but when you face the harsh reality of a doctor saying you may never do this again, then every ride's a gift. Every run's a gift.
No, I'm with you on that. It's and talking with people that are going through like hip pain or back pain or knee pain, they're like, yeah, I mean, so you had both your hips replaced, and I'm like, yeah, and it was the best decision I ever made because the pain, it just takes over your entire life. You can't even think straight.
Yep.
And as soon as people do it now, the technology is such that you're up and walking basically the same day.
Yeah.
And but I think orthopedic doctors are programmed to tell you you're never going to run again.
Yep.
That's just kind of the standard thing.
I got that.
But if you do things properly and you are strength training and you're taking care of yourself, you can get back into it.
Yeah.
It's
At least that's my view.
Yeah.
I think it's also just what they see constantly. They're like applying what they see on average to everyone, which is unfortunately the problem sometimes.
Normal humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
We have one. We know one doctor. He's an orthopedic. He's a very good friend of ours, and he's a cyclist. He talks about that, with his peers a lot. Though, is like you can't apply what you see to masses to individuals that this is their whole life and their passion, right? And
Right,
that's a hard
right.
thing for I think a lot of doctors to talk about.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're super excited to have you. Nikki, normally we don't have folks on that are so well versed in the science of performance. Nikki is really, really excited about this. So y'all can nerd out together, and I'll do my best to kind of keep up. I know you've got
I
some
wouldn't.
very specific questions you want to
No,
ask.
no, no.
Right?
Before we get into that, and I wouldn't say like I definitely do not know as much as the majority of people that are in this world. I'm more of like the most curious person. So
yeah,
I love to learn things. But before we get into that, I think a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, if they do know human powered health, they're attributing it to a cycling team because that's what, as
yeah,
cyclists, we see a lot. Specifically, an amazing women's cycling team. There used to be a men's cycling team. Joey Roscoff, who is from Atlanta, was on it. So people are very familiar with the kit and the brand.
yeah,
But it's obviously more than just a cycling team. It's a lot more than that. So can you walk us through essentially like what it is and how it came to be? Because I know it was kind of
yeah.
your brainchild.
Yeah, I mean the name Human Powered Health has been around for quite some time because our cycling team has had many iterations. Back with Kelly Benefits, where it started, we're still obviously close partners with Kelly Benefits and John Kelly and his team. And then it was United Healthcare, Optum, and then it transitioned over to Rally. But the name Human Powered Health was a tagline essentially that Charles Aaron and some of his team had come up with, and uh, you know, over the years, there's this discussion around, there's something about human powered health that's really powerful, and can we take that tagline and convert it into a cycling team, and then obviously that then parlayed over into a business. And so human powered health, we launched 2 years ago. I think we have a very unique perspective because we've got a deep understanding of healthcare. I come from a healthcare background. Many folks in our team come from a healthcare background, but we also have deep expertise in athletic human performance. And so we've got both kind of angles that we're coming at this. And so we know all too well the challenges and the inefficiencies and the costs of this very reactive health system that we're all faced with. And we saw an opportunity to do things differently, to take a more proactive approach to engaging in one's health. If you look at all the science and the research that's been around for some of it, decades by now, on these very specific biomarkers on things like body composition and aerobic capacity or your VO2 max and blood lactate, resting metabolic rate, hydration, grip strength, force, etc. They're all highly correlated with all-cause mortality and longevity, meaning that if you can get a baseline understanding of your physiological values, and I'm not talking about like estimates from your Garmin or your Apple Watch or some other device. I'm talking your actual physiological values. And then you can get a hyper personalized plan across our four pillars: movement, mindset, fuel, and recovery. That's the medicine, so to speak. And then you can maximize those values relative to who you are over a long period of time. Statistically speaking, and the research is pretty clear on this, you have a pretty good shot at living a long, productive, healthy, full life.
Yeah.
And interestingly, many of these biomarkers, as you guys know, have been used by athletes for a long time to improve athletic performance. So blood lactate, resting metabolic rate, et cetera. And then you look at the physiology of these athletes, especially at the cellular level, where the mitochondria is at, where that's where all the magic happens as it relates to energy production and metabolism. it's pristine. And so we know this stuff works. But the question has always been, how does this translate to the general population?
Yeah.
And so that's something that we have really spent a lot of time on. And so human powered health, we help individuals measure, understand, and apply their unique physiology using best in class technology, data, evidence based science, and then specialized expertise from graduate level performance physiologists who are not only really passionate about this stuff, but they're very good at transforming this data into actionable insights and recommendations to improve health in athletic performance.
Yeah.
And so that's basic. That's at the core. And we're doing this across our market leading performance labs, which we're in 3 markets now, Minnesota, the Boston area, and then we just recently opened up in Scottsdale. And that's all about access. So giving consumers and athletes access to this really sophisticated physiological assessment experience. And then we're also doing this through digital. So right out of the gate, we understood that in order to really make a broad impact, you need to have a digital component to that. So we, right out of the gate, went out and found Human Go, which we were lucky enough to find Eric Abkassis and his technology that he's built. We did our diligence. We looked at a lot of different platforms in the AI space, and Human Go is by far the most advanced. It actually uses AI and large language model, where a lot of these other platforms out there are just, kind of decision trees and more of a kind of a flow. But this is a living, breathing thing. So it was really cool.
We were going to ask you about the new AI tool that you guys had just announced. So with that, is it taking the information? So if I go in, I get my VO2 max, I get all the tests done. Are you inputting it into this? Let's just call it like the Chat GPT Human Go, and then it's telling me what I need to do, what I need to work on, how I can improve.
Yeah. At a high level, what we have is, so if an individual comes into our lab, they book an array of assessments, and they come in, they meet with the performance physiologist, they go through the experience. They'll then have this consult afterwards to review all the data. And we built our own data dashboard. So it aggregates all the data, and then we can provide recommendations from that. And that's something that we built on our own with our development team here in Minnesota. So all that data is sitting there in your athlete profile. And then that data flows into Human Go to create the prescription. So it's using your actual physiological data to create the prescription and periodize it. So if you're an athlete, obviously that's going to be more geared towards an event of some sort, very likely. What we're working on next is making it broadly accessible. So not just athletes, but the general consumer that is looking for health optimization or just to improve their overall health. They may or may not be participating in some sort of event, but they want to be active. And so the AI will create the prescription, and then we're very close to having the large language model component, which is Hugo, that's our AI coach, will be able to make very specific recommendations on products and services that we have curated. So for example, if we indicate something that you're low on calcium, or maybe there's osteoporosis or something, and to be clear, we're not diagnosing anything, but perhaps you need some supplements. The AI will recommend specific supplements from our partner Momentous, which we're very excited about our recent partnership with them. So
that is exciting.
That's just an example.
Will Human Go be able to connect to like an Aura Ring or Whoop to track all of?
It already does. Yeah.
Okay.
We sync up with, Aura, Apple, Google, Garmin, everything, all the big players, Strava, Koros, etc. Yeah.
That's really exciting because
You just
Yeah.
named half of Nikki's subscriptions there.
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I like testing
Yeah.
things. I'm always like testing different things. But
Um,
I've had Aura. Well, I wear Koros for running, but I've had Aura Ring
yeah.
for a pretty long time now. I like the Aura Ring a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We're actually about to release a major release for Human Go. It's been completely revamped. The whole entire experience has been revamped. So we're super excited about that. That should be coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then give you guys access to that so you can utilize it with your own training.
Yeah, and
That'd be great.
if so, we know that you don't have a training facility here in Atlanta yet. Maybe in the future, but
On the roadmap.
it's all yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Is there a way for us to go to like a partner location? Like, do you recommend partner locations to go get specific tests done, and then you load that into your system into Human Go, so that we can essentially use your technology even if we don't have a facility to go to?
Yeah, we don't have a partner network in that regard where we're connected with other labs and making recommendations, but uh, that's something that we probably should look at to as we scale up. But our plans are to start opening more labs here relatively quickly. We've got 4 open right now. In the last 2 years, we wanted to slow down this year and really focus on growing and building out our digital capabilities. And so we also have a business in Hyderabad, India, Human Powered Health Technologies, which is we're in the process of scaling that up from a development perspective, and that's going to, of course, support human powered health in our digital ambitions, but it would also support portfolio companies like Wahoo and Hawken Dynamics and other groups that we're working with and invested in. So
So I love the AI stuff because I feel like I've been personally hacking AI for my own personal use. I don't want to get too into it because I feel like everyone on the pod that listens,
Listeners of the pod know.
they
what
already
she's
know
to
about
talk
this. So I don't want to talk about it too much. But at the end of last year, I ran an ultra in the mountains, one of the hardest ones in Georgia, and I trained a lot for it. Probably didn't eat enough. Probably didn't fuel as much because I was fueling like I was a cyclist, not like a runner, because trail running is super new to me. And basically just crashed like hard after the race and couldn't run at all. And so I knew something was wrong with me, but it took about a full month of going to 3 different doctors that didn't believe me and doing blood tests to find out that my ferritin levels were at like a 5.
I was gonna say, did you check your ferritin?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, this is the crazy thing is they refused to check my ferritin. They were like, no, we check your iron, your hemoglobin, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's like pulling teeth to get the ferritin value.
It's crazy. So I actually went to ChatGPT, uploaded my results for my other blood tests, and ChatGPT literally said, well, I think the first step is to check your ferritin levels.
Yeah. It's giving you some direction
Exactly.
where to start to look. Yeah. But to get to your question, yes, we will have the ability for individuals to upload from an EMR, or they're, say they got their blood work done and they want to use that data within our AI engine. That's going to be part of the experience as well. We're actually getting into blood work as well. That's something that we're exploring as a offering down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because I was even thinking like, okay, so when I was at my worst, where I could barely get out of bed, and like terrible brain fog, all the things that come along with that, low ferritin, low iron. If I had gone in and said, oh well, maybe I just need to figure out what my VO2 max is and figure out all these things, like maybe I'm not, I'm doing something wrong, I still would have just, like, without that blood work, I wouldn't have been able to understand.
You would have been more frustrated and more fatigued. I mean, imagine going through a VO2 max test in that state.
Yeah.
It would have been miserable.
I would just start crying.
But I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, I've coached a lot of female athletes in my 25-year career as a coach, and that was the first thing I'd always ask if there was any performance decrement or fatigue. It was always, ferritin, and exactly what you said. It's like pulling teeth to get the doctor to actually.
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. It probably some sort of insurance thing. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I mean I don't know.
So
It's a challenge.
if you have an athlete, because I also did this, that they think they have low ferritin, like because you can just you feel like crap. Like it's very now that I know what it feels like, I'm like I mean it almost feels like you have a really bad case of COVID because you feel so
Yeah.
terrible, but forever. I actually ordered an Amazon test like from China, and it was a ferritin test, but I guess they make them for kids in China because kids get like
Oh,
low iron easily or something. I have no idea. But I ordered this test, and it's just like a COVID test where you prick well, from like a scale perspective, you essentially prick your
yeah.
finger, drop the blood in, put the little, saline or whatever that is, and then it just tells you whether it's high or low, and then or like
Yeah.
between. But that was
Is it accurate?
really accurate because I tested it when I was at my lowest, and it was basically like nothing showed up, which means you have like it's as low as possible. And then I ended up getting 3 rounds of iron infusions because I finally found a doctor that was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah, you can't operate like this. And after the first iron infusion, it immediately was like you could see the colored line. And then
Yeah.
after the third
Yeah.
one, it was like a solid, like you're good. I felt like a engine that had been given rocket fuel after that. But so many people don't know. And it's like doctors, but it was super accurate. So if you ever have an
Yeah.
athlete that just needs like a quick proof point to a doctor,
Yeah.
that was
I think
helpful.
because the doctors aren't used to seeing athletes like you. I mean, they're used to seeing the general population, and why would they think that somebody who's fairly sedentary has low ferritin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's probably it, but who knows?
Yeah.
So
But I think that's why human powered health like is very exciting. And then if you get like the blood components, because I would rather pay out of pocket and go to a place that I know is going to help me and diagnose me and then also put me on like a path to
Yeah.
success outside of blood work and all of that. But then going into the other offerings that you currently have, I just feel like that's such a draw for people that they're not
Yeah.
trying to figure out why they're sick because they're not sick. They just want to optimize.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like I said last time, Nikki's ready to help look for real estate in Atlanta whenever you guys are ready. So
Well, because I'm constantly thinking like, why aren't there any women specific like clinics? Like there's all of these, like in Atlanta, there's so many concierge medicine. And a lot
Yeah.
of the concierge medicine that pops up in Atlanta is LGBTQ. And so it's specifically
Yeah.
for that population, which is amazing. And you pay and like people are tuned into like what your needs are. And I'm always like, why isn't there a women specific? I mean, 50% of the population are women and we're all going through crazy hormonal
Yeah.
changes as we age.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just very passionate about the unique individual qualities of people,
Well, I mean, I think obviously it's a no-brainer. I mean, with one of our partners' investments being in Atlanta with Wahoo, it's an attractive market for us. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So what's next on the roadmap? What's I guess outside of the locations, like how do you educate your customer? Because I think about this all the time. Like we obviously know how to use a human powered health. We know why we would use it.
Yeah.
We know the benefits. How, from a roadmap perspective, how are you going to scale your customer base so that maybe like not the average person, but someone who is just getting into running or riding or swimming understands the benefits and
Yeah.
of it?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And like I said, the last couple of years we put a lot of thought into obviously this stuff works for athletes, we know that. But how, again, the overall question is how does this translate to the general pop? And so there's really three areas, and you just mentioned one of them. One is access. So how do you give access to the general consumer who's just looking for health optimization, how to extend or expand their lifespan? How do you give access to this really potent medicine in an experience that consumers expect and quite frankly demand? Like going into one of our labs it's a premium experience. It's a white glove experience. It's like you're going into an Apple store, and that's really the feeling that we're trying to generate. Because if you know anything about the sports performance or the athletic performance, labs have been around for a while, for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But it's been a very fragmented experience. Certainly it's inconsistent. Oftentimes it's a poor consumer experience. I know for like me, when I was racing as a pro triathlete, for example, I knew the importance of getting VO2 and lactate and all that. but finding access to it, and more importantly, finding access and then somebody that can actually do the test in a scientific way, it was always a challenge. So I'd have to go to a university in the bowels of the exercise physiology department,
Yep.
go through a brutal test, get handed a piece of paper, a pat on the back, and that was it. I'm like, now, as an athlete, I was willing to endure that experience because I knew I was willing to do whatever it took to improve. Consumers don't think like that. So you have to create an experience that resonates with them. That's the first thing. The second thing is what you also said, Nikki, around education. How do you educate the general consumer on the importance of this approach? I think Peter Tia, Huberman, Galpin, Stacy Sims, the rest of the longevity crew are doing a very good job at bringing this to the mainstream, but we have a long ways to go to before we can wave the white flag and call it mass adoption. And we can dig more into what we're doing to really help drive the education component. And the third piece of it, I think, is partnerships. We're one piece of the puzzle, one cog in the wheel. And if we really want to fundamentally help transform the health trajectory of this country and eventually the globe, we need to work with mission-aligned partners like Wahoo, like you guys, like Momentous, like Kelly Benefits, and others to essentially step into the breach with us and create a movement around it. So those are the three areas that we're really focused on. We'll continue to expand our lab footprint and accelerate that so we can get as many across the country as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, I think the digital component is going to be really critical. And that's why we made these investments in India to scale up a development team. That's why we acquired HumanGo, because we believe it's the most advanced AI engine in this industry. And now it's just a matter of evolving it to be to serve a broader population.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so the core, sounds like there's a few core customers there. One is the amateur athlete that wants to get really fast for their big event, right?
Yeah.
But also, I didn't even think about sounds like there's a core customer there too, that it's just about me being healthier, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't have an event. I'm not, I'm not competing, but I just want to be healthier. When that's a much broader funnel, right? Like that's a big group.
It's a huge funnel.
Yeah.
And, when we started Human Powered Health, we wanted to start very narrow and learn quickly, obviously. And so we started with athletes, more specifically hardcore endurance athletes. But what we're finding now in terms of who's coming into the lab, the distribution of customer is, I'd say, more 50-50 athlete, amateur athlete, recreational, Olympians, et cetera. And then the other half are the general population, the longevity folks. Maybe they read Peter Tia's book.
Yeah.
I
tried to read it.
Yeah. So, but I think as we scale up, we're going to find the distribution is going to be more like 30% athlete, 70%, the general population.
Yeah.
93% of U.S. adults are poor cardiometabolic health.
Yeah.
We're spending $5 trillion on healthcare expenditure in this country, half of which can be attributed to lifestyle functions.
Yeah.
Right? Like we know lifestyle drives the majority of this. And that's really where we're going. And I think with, not to get political here, but, the new administration seems to be pretty focused on prevention, just from what I've been reading.
Yeah.
And I think that's an opportunity to help shift the way we're doing things in this country broadly. We're seeing that employers are moving away from the traditional healthcare or the traditional rewards wellness programs because they don't work.
Yep. They don't.
And I know specifically, my last 5 years at United, I would look at claims data of, large customers. And it was shocking at the amount that was being spent on diabetes, on MSK, on obesity-related issues, on certain cancers. And it's just a vicious cycle over and over and over again. And so employers are like stopping. They're even changing the payment mechanism where, 10 years ago it was more like PM, so per member per month,
Yep.
where they were paying for a program regardless of their employee was using it. Now they're like, nah, we need engagement. We need to see outcomes before we start paying. So there's more of the shared savings model. But so things are shifting, not as quickly as we would like, but they're shifting.
I think it's definitely shifting. I think there's more of a general awareness because of the Peter Attias of the world. And by the way, I tried to read his book. I got halfway through it. For me, like a lifetime athlete, I'm like, I get it, but he talks about death so much. Like, and I couldn't like constantly think about dying, but I was thinking about the average person that grabs hold of that book. The message to them is more, it's not about performance. It is about being able to extend your life and not and being capable during your lifetime. Right. And that's what he talks about a lot. And I think that's the kind of thing that gets people's attention to where they're like, oh, I do need to do something about this. I do need help doing it because, as you mentioned, one of the 4 pillars is mindset. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's
mindset.
What you're focused on is that in that mindset pillar, right? Is lifestyle change?
Yeah, lifestyle change, behavior change.
Okay.
How do you create longitudinal accountability to your own health, essentially, right? I mean, what I had said earlier, that it's very rare when I don't do something in the morning. It's very rare. That's because that's just the way I'm wired. I've been an athlete my whole life. I know the benefits of it. And it just revs my day. If I don't do it, I just don't feel right. It's kind of hard to explain, but I mean, you guys are very active, so you probably get it.
We're familiar.
Yeah, you just don't feel the same, right? Something's off.
Yep.
But how do you take somebody who has no concept of that, like no concept of health whatsoever? They don't, sitting on the couch and walking to the fridge is the extent. How do you get to that person? And I don't know if you can. It really takes, so we're focused on motivated humans, and that's a big distinction, because if you look at what we're doing from a pyramid perspective, you got elite level athletes in the top, and then you kind of funnel down into the broader scope where recreational athletes, the weekend warriors, the longevity crowd, single chronic, polychronic, they need a different care path. So if somebody's got diabetes and say they've got high blood pressure and several other comorbidities, we probably can't help, right? They need a completely different care path within the traditional healthcare system, unfortunately. But if anybody has a glimmer of motivation, there's opportunity to help that person and to support that person to get them on the right path. And then it's just a matter of repeatability, and they create that habit. So,
yeah, I 100% agree. And it's interesting because I've always thought, like, how do you get, so now we obviously know there's like the kind of super pills or super shots of weight loss out there that everyone knows about. And I won't say the words because sometimes YouTube blocks us, but I think it's interesting because I always joke that I think those weight loss drugs are great for some people. I really do. I think some people get super motivated by it. And then they get out the door, they start exercising just like that little bit of weight loss and just habit change, to your point, mindset. Yeah. And I'm always like, I feel like doctors should say, I will prescribe you this if I can see, like, I have to be connected to your Oura ring or your tracker on your watch. And you have to get out every day and walk at least 2 miles every single day.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I won't re-prescribe it. So it's like, I wish, because I feel like it only takes 2 weeks to really create like a good habit. And so it's like, just if doctors had the mindset of like, I'm not going to prescribe you anything more if we don't have a habit attached to it, I feel like that would change so many people's perceptions on just getting the prescription and then that fixes it, because it really doesn't. It's the prescription needs to create a habit that ultimately, when you stop the prescription, fixes it. But that aside, I do, pivoting a little bit, but talking about medicine still, how do you feel, because you brought this up earlier, like mitochondrial health, How do you feel about some of these new, and they might not even be new, maybe they're just new to me, but like the methylene blue protocols, the rapamycins, the metformins, all of those, and I know those all do different things, but.
Well, I mean, metformin's been very well studied and researched, but I'm not familiar with the other ones. I mean, I know what they are, but I don't know the mechanisms behind them. At the end of the day, my belief is that it's exercise and proper nutrition that is the most potent medicine, and I don't think any pill or anything else that we're ever going to invent that's going to change that. I think, as you said, I think for some people it's a catalyst to help them get started, but it's not the overall solution. Humans need to move. They need to have balance. They need the right mindset. They need to be able to recover well, and they need to know how to do it, in a scientific way. I think there's so much information out there right now. The saying, what is it? We're drowning in information, but starving for knowledge. I think that couldn't be more true now, with Dr. Google and all these influencers that are pushing different things. At the end of the day, for us, we're focused on the hardcore science, the things that have been well validated and researched around all-cause mortality and what moves the needle there. So that's where we're gonna keep our focus. But there's lots of things that are coming on the market, so who knows what we can find. So
yeah, I feel like I get some sort of, I don't know, like notification. I see something on social media or podcast. Usually it's podcasts that pop up with like crazy new things, but it seems so overwhelming my thought is always, okay, that's great for cellular turnover or for mitochondrial health and energy and all that. But does that affect anything else? Does that negatively and there's just not a lot of, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to watch where like all the longevity protocols go in the future.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's very
if you guys want to have a really technical conversation at some point, if your audience would be receptive to that, we're working now with Dr. Inigo Samalan. So he was on Peter Attia's podcast a couple times, I think, because his first one was one, it was very technical, but I think it was very well received. Be happy to get you guys in touch with him, and he'll dive into lactate and metabolism. Lactate is something that I think we're going to find in the next few years is just a really potent, powerful substrate that has been just misunderstood. Mm-hmm. And back when I was in grad school, it was thought of as just a waste byproduct, and now we know it's an actual important fuel source. The brain, the heart, elite level athletes, they generate large amounts of lactate, which is good because they're actually oxidizing and using it as fuel. So I'm excited about that. And there's several companies that are working on continuous lactate monitors. There's some that are working on continuous cortisol. Obviously, there's glucose that's already out there, but imagine having a sensor where you've got lactate, cortisol, and glucose all in one sensor. Real time.
UCI
that's game changing.
UCI will ban that so fast we wouldn't even know what happened.
I mean, of course it has. Have you done a resting metabolic rate test before?
I don't think so. I haven't really done a lot of tests. I've never even done a VO2 max test.
It would be really cool for you guys to come to one of our labs and put you through the paces and maybe do it like a segment on it or something.
Yeah.
Could even video it and could turn it into a podcast. You can meet with one of our physiology team and talk shop.
I've been through a fair amount of testing, so I'll let Nikki do the testing, and I'll be there to talk.
Maybe Michael.
You'll be there with a beer in your hand,
exactly.
An athletic brew.
Maybe Michael and I could do the testing and then talk about his numbers.
That would be
as a young 20-something-year-old professional athlete, and me, a 35-year-old woman who trains a lot, eats healthy, races, but isn't a professional athlete. It'd be interesting to to kind of compare results and just talk about that.
I mean, VO2, I think, I know everybody's talking about VO2, but it is, in my opinion, the number one predictor. I mean, it makes sense if you know what it is and how it actually functions within the body. It drives everything.
Yeah.
And if we just did a pilot with a large healthcare broker out of the Northeast, where our team actually went to their corporate office. They've got a nice gym, and we had 30 employees come down, about 15 more athletically inclined, and then 15 more kind of that longevity health optimization focus. And we put them through VO2. So we brought a metabolic cart. We put them through VO2. We put them through RMR, force weight testing, and we did functional movement screen. And then we actually brought something called Cholesterol, which is a tabletop device for getting general biometrics around cholesterol, triglycerides, glucose.
Yeah.
And so we collected all this data, and we're doing virtual consults with the individuals. And then we're going to give them some medicine in between, and we're going to come back, and medicine, but I mean by exercise and nutrition, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to come back and retest 90 to 100 days, and we'll compare and we'll create a white paper out of it. But the reason I bring that up is because the VO2s that we were seeing from these individuals were pretty low relative to what you would see from an athlete.
Yeah.
And so if we can see like somebody who blew like a 25 VO2 in 90 days or 100 days come back and they're now sitting at a 38 or a 40, that is profound.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a profound improvement in their aerobic capacity. And then all their other numbers should then follow. That's what we're talking about, is people can get the baseline understanding, then get the plan in between, which is the medicine, and then retest. That creates the stickiness, and then you're progressing. So
what are the levers that you pull to drive VO2 up at a high level? Like, what are the different things that you're focused on with?
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that?
it's got to be a combination of what Peter Attia and everybody's talking about zone 2. I mean, obviously that is a big part of it. So you can stimulate the mitochondria really effectively, but also you need interval training and really hard, intense, short intervals to boost up.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all energy systems. I mean, that's what training is. It's all energy systems, and training and periodizing your training so that you're creating the right amount of stimulus, and then you're adapting. I think people have a hard time with the concept of stress versus rest. Oftentimes what we're finding is, especially for the athletically inclined individuals, the hardcore athletes, it's not that they're not training hard enough. It's that they're training too hard.
Yep.
And their body's not responding, and they're going in the opposite direction. This is a perfect example. We had a bunch of young triathletes in. These are professional triathletes, under 23. My guess is that some of them will be going to the Olympics in the 28 in LA. They were in our lab about a year and a half ago for 3 days. We put them through all testing. So we did VO2, we did lactate, we did race simulation, we did core body temperature, we did force plate testing, we did everything. And what we found was that as you can imagine, VO2s were incredibly high. Some were in the mid 80s. They're working at a high percentage of their VO2 max. But at the end of the day, our recommendation was that they need to start training less intense.
Huh. Yeah.
And the coach took it to heart and did it. Now all you need to do is look at the results. They're absolutely crushing it. Now, obviously, we're not going to take credit for all of that. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach, and these are young athletes. But it was enough of a shift in understanding the concept of stress versus rest and the energy systems that it's reaping massive benefit. So.
And is that just because their muscles are so fatigued and they're not recovering because they're going so hard all the
That's
time?
part of it, but
Okay.
if you're always constantly driving high intensity, you're not really utilizing your fatty acids to which are give you the most bang for the buck in terms of energy production.
Yeah.
So they're basically training on one end of the spectrum, and they were kind of neglecting all the other energy systems, which is what they needed to do to balance out. So.
Okay.
So, you have the Human Powered Health women's cycling team. They're obviously a very elite group, like some of the most
Yeah.
elite women in cycling
Yeah.
in the world. I'm assuming you run all kinds of tests on them a lot. Like that's one of the benefits of being on that team, I'm sure. What have
Yeah.
you learned is the biggest difference from, testing, let's say, these young male athletes that are going to the Olympics to these young female, or even, there's a lot of female cyclists that are even in their 30s too, so they're not even in their 20s anymore and they're crushing it.
Yeah.
What are the biggest differences when you I guess test women to male athletes in VO2 and resting metabolic rate?
VO2, if you're looking at it from a relative perspective, weight is a big impact, right? So, if Chad has an identical twin and they're doing the same training, their VO2s are let's say the same. Let's say it's a 70, but you weigh 20 pounds more than your twin
Yeah.
relative to who you are. There's a big difference there. So I think weight in terms of muscle mass and is the big difference between male and female endurance athletes in particular in terms of seeing VO2 numbers. But really when it comes down to VO2, I think the most important is, or one of the most important is just the percentage that you're able to work at it. So another example would be if you have your identical twin and you've got this 70 VO2 and you're able to work at, let's say 90% of your VO2, but your twin is only able to work at 75% of your VO2,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to beat your twin every race,
Yep.
every day. So that data is critically important. We do test our female athletes, our cycling team. They come to our lab. So last year or 2 years ago, they were in our lab in Minnesota. Last year, they were in Boston for several days going through all the testing, and it's just a great experience. The collaboration and having access to the full array of testing and nutrition and sports psychology, that's the way these teams need to operate. To really be racing at the top level. So,
do you feel like the women need to, because I feel like I read so much and it's hard to understand and everything, obviously everyone's different, but it's like I read all these things that, women need to take even more rest than men. So like if you're relying on a training plan that was built by a coach who's a male and he, just a general plan, is that true? Is it just completely depends on the person? It doesn't really matter like the gender as much.
I think it's true, but because there's this hormonal differences, right? That can play havoc, and our coaches are well versed, obviously, in the female anatomy and physiology, and then build the training around it. But I think that you're spot on. There has to be a significant difference in how you're training a female endurance athlete compared to a male endurance athlete because there's hormonal differences and all kinds of other factors that come into play. Like what you talked about, the being anemic and your low ferritin levels. Female endurance athletes are more likely to be anemic and have those types of issues than male athletes. So those are just, biology. So
You'd be shocked how many guys Nikki has talked to about her anemia ferritin issue, and they're like, I think I have the same thing.
It's so funny how that's like the number. Whereas like it's funny because I have like a group WhatsApp group chat with some of my girlfriends that they're all either runners or cyclists or both. And so when I was going through all this, they were like, well, keep us updated. And I basically was just like, the number one thing I walked away is just at least once a year, just go test your blood levels and like demand to test this one thing. But and they were like, oh yeah, okay. It's just, but then as soon as I tell a guy, because they'll be like, oh, why haven't I seen you running? Oh yeah, I think I'm anemic 100%. And I'm just like, I don't want to say you're not because I don't know, but probably, unless you're bleeding internally somewhere, you're probably not anemic.
Very, very unlikely. I mean, it's unlikely. Yeah.
It's funny
that
though.
he was anemic. Yeah.
But do you have any other?
Yeah, one other kind of I wanted to ask you about kind of the technical fueling side. How are you feeling about this kind of carb revolution that's happening in cycling? Where now, I grew up in the late '90s, early 2000s, where we didn't eat when we rode, right? But now it's like
Or you ate figs.
A lot of fig Newtons, But now it's we need to take in a pretty high number of carbs if we're riding at an intensity level. It's a big shift, I think, that's happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've come full circle.
Yeah.
Because it was, well, you don't need that many carbs for quite some time, and now all of a sudden it's shifted back to, yes, in fact, you do need high carbohydrates. I think the whole fasting thing that was pretty big as well, where athletes were going into ketosis and all of that. It doesn't work for endurance athletes in particular. It doesn't.
Yep.
Right? I mean, what professional athlete is going to restrict their carbohydrate intake to go into ketosis? By the time they even get there, their career is over because they can't perform.
Right.
Right. So I think at the end of the day, people realize that if you are participating in endurance sports and you want to perform to your very best, you do in fact need the most readily available fuel, which is carbohydrates, glycogen, glucose, etc. That's the only way.
Yeah. And a lot of them.
In a lot of them.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's different, right? I mean, I think, the nutritional products, whether it's Precision or Morton or you name it, they're all now starting to have multiple sugars within their products, because obviously glucose goes down one path, sucrose goes down another path. And you can only take in so much, but when you can combine different sugars, theoretically you can take in more. But it really does have to do with training. And that was one area for me, nutritional training, I should say, is I really struggled on longer distance events. In fact, I could never perform at Ironman distance events because I could never eat on the bike.
Yeah. Never.
And it never set me up for a run that I could, perform to my best.
Yeah.
Just because I could never consume enough calories on the bike to have a successful run. So,
what is the biggest change for you coming from a large healthcare company back to in the startup world?
Yeah, I mean, United was a good place because it was so big. I had started a coaching company, and in 2006 with a couple guys. And it got absorbed into Optum in 2010. But United was such a big place that it was, I was able to kind of be an entrepreneur within the enterprise because I was working like in the innovation group and then worked within a health technology startup incubator. And then I worked for United Health Group Ventures, which is the private equity arm of United at the time. And so I was able to kind of be in a corporate environment, but still be fairly nimble and kind of build products that are innovative and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it still was markedly different, right? I mean, being in a pure startup is, it's fun. It's exciting. If you have the right vision and you have the right team around you, great things can happen, as you guys know. So it's just about, grinding it out and making an impact. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it would be hard to be an entrepreneur if we weren't endurance athletes, because at least this is how I feel. To me, it's like when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have times that are really difficult, and more like uncertain, I guess. That's the thing. But I think as an endurance athlete, I've just learned that like through training, like when things typically feel uncertain, it's all going to work out. Like if I can get to the race healthy, if I can, get there, even if the race, if something falls apart, I still make it to the end, or I still accomplish something. And so it's more like knowing that if you just focus on that end goal constantly and take all of the ups and downs as just happenings, but not like bad or good necessarily.
Yeah.
So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to enjoy suffering.
Yeah. Well, or just,
but you do. I mean, you
Yeah.
absolutely do have to have that, an element of that. And I think, endurance athletes are tough mentally. Every race that I had done, you got an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other.
Yep.
And the devil's telling you, just stop. The pain will go away. Just stop. That's all you have to do. And you got the angel sitting over here. No. Keep going, keep going, keep going. You got this. That was the constant battle. And I think over time you build this resilience, which plays well into, as you guys have clearly articulated, the startup kind of entrepreneur mindset. So
exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great chat.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you guys for having me on. And, like I said, I'd love to have you guys host you guys at one of our labs, and maybe we could do some sort of segment. I think it'd be cool for your audience to see
100%.
you guys see Nikki go through some suffering.
Definitely. We've actually talked a lot about going to Boston.
Yeah.
Nikki's her very youngest childhood was from Boston, and we haven't been there ever together.
Yeah.
So maybe we can arrange for that and do a
Yeah, I
little
wanted
Boston.
to
So
show
you were born in Boston? Or,
in Grafton, so it's like a little town outside of, yeah.
I lived in Grafton.
Really?
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I lived in Grafton.
We lived on Keith Hill Road.
I can't tell you what
it's
street
like
we lived on.
right down from like the little gazebo, like in the downtown area and everything. Yeah.
Oh my, what a small world. Yeah. I mean, I was born in Boston.
Yeah.
And then we lived in Grafton. We lived in Worcester, but I remember Grafton very, very well.
Yeah, I was born in Worcester Memorial, I guess. Yeah.
And neither one of y'all talk funny. That's the weird thing.
I mean, I moved away when I was young, and when I moved to Florida, where my grandparents live, that's why we moved back there. I did have a really strong accent because I was like 6, I think. And like little kids have the funniest Boston accents, and our neighbor had like a really strong so I just hung out with them all the time. And they just, at school, they thought I had a speech impediment. And my mom was like, no, she's fine. And then
she's just from Boston.
Yeah. But
you are the first person I've talked to that I have known lives in Grafton.
That is so. My dad listens to every single podcast, so he'll be texting me immediately and be like, "Oh my gosh, where did he live? What street did he live on?"
Yeah. I'll ask my dad what street we lived on, and I'll send you a note.
That's amazing.
I remember we had a pool. Mm-hmm. We had a pool that I almost actually drowned in.
Oh God.
Yeah,
that's not good.
And then I ended up doing triathlons. Imagine that. So
yeah. It's a really cute town. That's why I want to take him back there. To like show him the
Now we got a reason.
Everything,
we
and then now we can go to the
let's meet in Boston.
All right,
perfect.
Or Grafton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll chat with you guys.
All right,
thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Take care.